Bar for Bar album reviews, Sadistik, Elysium. Elysium is the latest project from Sadistik and acts as a follow-up and a counterpart to his last project, Delirium, which dropped earlier this year. This EP carries on some of the themes of Delirium while flipping things just a little bit by going for a slightly different sound than what we've heard from Sadistik thus far. Each time Sadistik drops another project, you get a different sound, so it's always exciting to hear what he's going to deliver next. The title of the project refers to an afterlife of sorts, which combined with the single Zodiac really sets the tone for what to expect, for me at least. The project comes in at a total runtime of 18 minutes with 7 tracks, so combined with Delirium, we're at a total of 33 minutes with 13 tracks. This choice in track length makes sense if we're taking 6 as the devil's number and Delirium being the more negative side of the two projects, because then having 7 tracks on Elysium makes it feel more holy and almost calming. Elysium starts off with the track Canary in a Mine. This song refers to what coal miners used to do to determine whether or not they would be safe to breathe in a coal mine. What they would do is they would send a canary in, and due to its smaller lung capacity, it may or may not die due to excess carbon monoxide or other harmful gases. This track doesn't have a chorus to it, but is instead supplemented by excerpts from Anne Sexton's poem, Wanting to Die. This addition makes the song feel very melancholy because of the way Anne Sexton is speaking so elegantly about death and suicide. Sadistik likens himself to a canary in a mine throughout the track, but mostly within the second verse, I feel. It almost feels like the second verse is him rapping from the perspective of the canary in a mine, but instead if it were him in real life. The whole verse feels like it's coming from someone who feels like they're dying or wanting to die, but it's coming to the realization that their life is worth it. This is most noticeable with the line, "Let the breath get in, I'm present, more precious than any gem is," strictly because of the breathing part and how it sounds like he's pulling himself up out of whatever situation or emotions that he's experiencing, because life is precious. The next track is Sirens, featuring Wicca Phase Springs Eternal, who provides the intro and outro verses. He's a pretty good fit, I feel, mostly because his voice blends in nicely with the instrumentals, almost as if he was being used as an instrument itself. This song feels like it's about depression and the mind state that you can find yourself when going through a depressive state. The first part of Sadistik's verse makes it sound like he's becoming more reclusive and starts keeping things away from people that he loves. Early in his verse, he mentions, "Yeah, I've been drifting off in a fog, center synagogue," which to me sounds like his temple, which could be his mind in this case, is in a fog, where he's just listening to inner gods telling him he's different, and like a demagogue, he doesn't want to interrupt. My understanding of this is that while in this foggy mind state, he's hearing his thoughts that are telling him things like a demagogue who's a leader who makes use of prejudices, false claims, and promises to gain power. He or another voice in his head is taking it all in to find a way to benefit. Later on in the song, after the pause in his verse, things shift to a bit more of a brighter or happier outlook on things. He explains that a chrysalis lives so deep inside you. So a chrysalis or a cocoon is often seen as the sort of rebirth because they go from a caterpillar to a butterfly. So having that within you is like saying you're going to experience some sort of drastic change due to all the things happening to you internally. Taking all of that in and analyzing it can lead you to having a different outlook on what's occurred to you than what you may have previously had. Lazarus brings us a reference to both the Bible story of Lazarus as well as the Lazarus pit from Batman. I think in this case, though, he's leaning more towards the story rather than Batman. The gist of the Lazarus story is that Lazarus was dying, Jesus came to see him, but he had already died. 4 days later, Lazarus was alive again because of Jesus. There's more to it than that, but that's all the pertinent information. This also plays into the rebirth discussed with the previous track because Lazarus was brought back to life. It feels like the entire first verse is Sadistik rapping from the perspective of Lazarus, someone who's dead, or as the Reaper maybe. I'm leaning a little bit more towards the Reaper because of the lines, "It's never enough, I'm the shepherd you summoned, let everything flush because nothing's forever. You ever just tasted your blood, maybe it's rust." The shepherd here should be a religious figure, probably Jesus, who is often depicted as a shepherd, but because of the less than pleasant imagery here, I would still lean more towards the Reaper or Charon, who in Greek mythology would ferry souls into the world of the dead. I feel that either of those entities would be a bit more crass with what they have to say regarding death. When we get to the second verse, Sadistik doesn't lighten up on any of the imagery, but makes it a little bit more lighthearted with lines. Fold my limbs up like origami. It makes it easy to store the body. Humor me in my morbid hobbies. Here it sounds like he's acknowledging that he has interesting hobbies, which I don't think are literally folding bodies and storing them away, but more along the lines of his love for horror and horror movies and themes. These are things that aren't really pleasant to talk about to most people, so it makes sense for him to just be like, oh, yeah, right, this isn't a normal thing to say, just humor me. I'm joking. I also just like the line where he says, look at my scalp to see sixes aligned, because of its allusion to the devil. Seeing as the song is referencing a holy event, bringing this up feels intentional. It could also just be going into the morality of bringing people back to life who are dead, because I can definitely see people assuming that that's the devil's work. The fourth track is Life is Just, an interlude. The title of the track makes it look like this is just going to be an interlude, and it kind of is, but unlike most interludes, this is a full-ass song. This song talks about freedoms and people fighting for them, even though they've got people fighting against them, saying that there's no exodus or that hell is indefinite. It sounds really intense due to its delivery, and I think that's the point. Sadistik runs through many of the emotions that people fighting for some sort of change or freedom are probably going through. There's freedom in sight, but there's also an opposition. Initially, it could be about the thing that you're trying to gain freedom from, but it could also very well be the thoughts inside your own head questioning why you're even doing this when you feel like nothing's going to change. The only other thing that this track could be referencing, I think, would have to be the Great Fire of Rome, in which Emperor Nero was rumored to have ordered the fire so that he could replace the palace. And that's only because of the line, let's burn down the city till Rome's in flames. It's likely that there's more to that, but I just don't know yet. I do really like how the song is delivered, though. The next track, Zodiac, features Mick Jenkins. This track could literally be about your zodiac sign, but it could also be in relation to the Zodiac Killer. Based on themes typically found in sadistic music, I thought to believe it was the latter. However, there's nothing in these lyrics that make it sound like it would be related to the Zodiac Killer, so the next viable option would be the prescription drug Zodiac. It might be more well known as having the same active ingredient as Klonopin. With that information, the substance of this track makes more sense. Sadistik's verse has him talking to the pill, waiting for its effects to kick in. As he goes throughout his verse, the things that he's talking about are really just a result of Zodiac. Mick Jenkins continues these thoughts in his verse where he straight up says, if it makes me numb, I'll take the side effects. However, through his verse, it feels like he's more talking less about the side effects of it and more about the reasons for him to take it, or like why he's taking it. Rainbow Road isn't nearly as pleasant as the title suggests. Just like the Rainbow Road from Mario Kart, things may look pretty from the outside, but on the inside there is a whole lot going on. The track samples an episode of Cowboy Bebop in which Faye Valentine, who suffers from amnesia, is watching an old VHS tape she recorded for herself 10 years ago. The gist of the sample is that it's kind of a way to remind yourself that deep down you're always you, and you should always strive to do your best. Sadistik uses this to reflect on himself. There's times that he doesn't want to be here, but he also doesn't want to leave because he wants to see where things go. It's almost like the first verse is meant to be recorded in the past, just like in Faye's case, and then the second verse is him reflecting on it, as he is the same me, just more refined. The final track on Elysium is All the Pretty Horses. This track starts off with a sample from Frank Ocean's Self-Control, and that song's about a relationship that's falling apart due to immaturity. This track touches on that just a little bit with the first lines, an anthem for anathemas. Anathema, I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong, is something or someone that one really dislikes. Or it could also be regarding the excommunication of a person from the church. I can't really tell how that comes into play here, though. It sounds like Sadistik wants people to dissect him and put him on display. I'm just not too sure why. I'm sure that just requires many more listens on that song, though. Overall, this project was really solid. Like I mentioned at the beginning, every project Sadistik puts out is different from the last. With this, he departs slightly from Delirium, opting for a more acoustic sound. This plays really well with the themes of this project, especially if we're to think of Elysium as this pleasant afterlife. It's really enjoyable and an appropriate transition from Delirium to Elysium, I feel. My favorite tracks are Canary in a Mine, Sirens, Life is Just an Interlude, and Rainbow Road. I can't wait to see what we'll get with Sadistik's next project because he's yet to disappoint me in all my years of listening to him. Although I do prefer the style of rapping and beats that we've gotten on projects like Delirium, both Sallow Sessions 1 and 2, and Alters, I still really enjoy the other sounds that he brings to the table, because he often does it pretty well. With all that said, let me know in the comments below what you thought of this project, whether or not you like it more or less than Delirium, and where you kind of rank it in terms of his recent releases. And also like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.